Hey everybody, this is Junaid Afeef. I am with my brother Tariq Afeef today, and we are going to be talking about mentoring. Tariq is the master of mentoring. He mentors a lot of people, and he's got a lot of experience doing it, and he's got a lot of great insights on how to be a great mentee. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. You know that this podcast was created because I wanted to give people an opportunity to have access to mentorship. And I'm a real strong believer that mentorship can really shorten learning curves. It can be a crystal ball into the pitfalls that exist in variety of careers and professional pathways. And when young people and even people in the middle of their careers access good mentors, they can really improve their prospects for success. So in today's conversation, he and I are going to cover the following areas. Number one, doing your homework. Number two, presenting yourself as a mentee. Number three, the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of resumes. Number four, how to do proper follow-ups as a mentee. And we will wrap up this conversation with some really bad examples of pet peeves and some really excellent examples of mentees that have knocked it out of the parks. With that, let's get started. T, how's it going?
Living the dream, you?
Yeah, good. So, you and I talk about like all kinds of, things about the people that we choose to mentor, and some of the good and the bad. And what I want to do is I want to kick off this session with you talking about basically how a mentee should prepare when she or he is engaging with a mentor for the first time. So what does doing good homework look like?
A little bit of well, thanks for having me on this. The first thing is you have to understand what it is that you're looking to get out of being a mentee, right? Are you looking for advice on a career change? You don't know which career to go into. You're specifically looking for how can I land this next job? So you have to really be focused and know what you're going to be doing. And then the other is you have infinite resources these days, right? ChatGPT or any of those things. Do some homework on, if you're interested in some companies, do some homework. Ask about the companies. Learn to have a good set of prompts. Learn about what do they do? How do they make money? Who are their competitors? What is their moat in terms of, what gives them that moat of security of their business? How is AI affecting that? So do a little bit of homework on that. So that's on the company and what you're looking for side of things.
But when somebody is going to be reaching out to a prospective mentor, somebody that has really identified her or himself as a person that can help you as a mentee, in addition to doing that homework about where you want to go, where you want to land, what other homework do you think you as a mentee should be doing to prepare to talk to this mentor?
Yeah, you have LinkedIn, right? Chances are you somehow got connected through LinkedIn. Do some homework, right? Learn about their background because you want to know how they can help, right? Like where do they work? Where have they worked? What was their journey? It's pretty easy to see when you look, up and down LinkedIn. So you got to do some homework on who you're talking to, where they've worked, and read it in detail. Don't just skim it, right? That's a very critical part of it too.
Yeah, I will tell you one thing that I find a little bit off-putting is when a mentee wants to seem engaging and they ask me a question about something about myself. And I think to myself, dude, did you not read my LinkedIn? It's like it's right there. So when people don't do their homework, or when they don't look up the stuff that's findable,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to use me as their human Google, it bothers me.
Yeah, for sure, because it's a matter of time, right? Like, what a waste of time. Something that you could easily have read. Like, you don't need to ask somebody. Go deeper in the conversation. So I agree.
So when when you meet somebody as a mentee for the first time, what's the most common mode of engagement these days? Is it in person, on the phone, like video calls?
Video calls. I prefer video calls unless someone is super local, then I'll meet them in person. But chances are they're not. In some cases, some people are overseas, right? Or in Canada or just distant cities. And finding time can be much easier to just do it via video chat. So I prefer
So
video, not audio.
so when you do video chats, you have any tips on how to present yourself on the video chat, like what you should be wearing, what might be an appropriate room in your home or wherever you are?
Yeah, I would definitely say make sure you have some coffee and wake up so you're not yawning on the call, not picking at your eyes. Make sure you're in some place. You may not have your own office or anything like that, but doing it on the bench press is probably not job one for you.
uh, unless you're applying at LA Fitness. But I don't think exactly that you don't need to have your own office space. I think in the world we live in today with video calls and people working from home, I think it's fine if you're in your kitchen or
Hmm.
your living room or your bedroom. I think what is important is that you present yourself in a way that respects the time
Hmm.
of the person you're meeting with. So, like, yeah, if you're disheveled, you and I don't have this problem, but if your hair is unkept, things like that, or like you said, I've had people that literally sound like they just woke up.
Hmm.
And, I think to me that just does that how does that impact the mentor mentee relationship? To me, it makes me feel like this person doesn't really value my time. And so I can give them the same good advice, but I become a little bit more reluctant to want to proceed with that after the particular phone call. And to me, that goes to the heart of what mentorship is, because at the end of the day, mentorship is effective when it develops a relationship. What do you think about that?
No, for sure. It's not transactional, right? You're not BFFs and it's not transactional. If it's transactional, it's just a matter of, hey, can you forward my resume? Sure, but potentially. But if as a relationship, first of all, you want to start off on the right foot, right? And so to your other point, you also don't want to be distracted. You don't want to be multitasking. You're not, helping with dinner or cleaning up while you're having this conversation. You got to be a little focused. And then having that relationship is you're building onto it, right? So you may have an intro and you may have some follow-ups and you really want to start off on the right foot.
So when you're talking to a mentee, to be effective, you want to have some candor, right? So what's been your experience with mentees and coachability?
Some people are very uncoachable. You realize that early on. And I've had some experiences with that, right? So some people will take what you're saying, they'll process it, they accept it. Some things I've had people say, yeah, I don't agree. And that's okay, right? Like, because your mentor, something that's important is your mentor doesn't know everything, right? They're good in their spheres of expertise. But there's some people who they're a little bit combative. I think part of it has to do with how little experience they may have if it's a newer entrant into the workforce. Um, so those are things that are a little bit difficult to work with.
I think you're right. It is okay to disagree, but I do think depending on the nature of the experience between you as a mentor and the person who is the mentee, I think I would like to see when I'm talking to somebody, if I say something and they disagree right there,
Hmm.
to me, that seems kind of problematic because even when I'm talking to somebody who has as much experience as me and they say something that I disagree with in, some type of a relationship where I'm trying to get help or get advice, I want to take time to think about what's being said. So I register something that you say to me, and I disagree with it. If it's a relationship that is just starting to be developed, the first thing I'm going to want to do is, just catalog that in my brain and say,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to think about that. This is something that I want to bring up later, but I don't want to disagree about it right now. Because the other thing is, when you're having a conversation, if if you tell me, hey, J- Jay, I think this is something you should do. This is my advice, and I tell you, I disagree. I mean, where does that take the conversation?
Yeah, it doesn't. It takes it nowhere, and it really shows the type of person that other person is, because there's something that I've noticed, and it's not a new thing. It's not with young folk. It's all ages, all cultures, ethnicities, races, everything. Right? It's people just wait their turn to talk. And again, it's not a new thing. I've noticed this in my earlier days. Over time, I became more aware, and I observe when people just wait their turn to talk. It's like you didn't process anything I said. And in particular, when you're a mentee, part of the whole purpose is to learn from somebody, to understand. Now, if your visceral reaction is that you disagree because of your own bias, experiences, or your own thoughts, I think a better thing to do for you to process that later is ask a follow up, right? Ask a good follow up question. And if you approach the conversation where you really want to learn from that person and get that mentorship, I don't think it's that hard to just have that candor and ask, like, how did you arrive at that idea? That's interesting. So you have to know how to ask that probing question, but ask the probing question and then take it back and process it if you can't process it in the moment.
Yeah, I think um, I like what you said about, like, the point of the mentor-mentee relationship is to learn. And I do find that sometimes when you're talking to somebody, they're really there either for two things. One, a transaction, or two, validation. They're really not looking for a mentor mentee relationship. They're basically saying, hey, I want you to make a connection for me. I want you to help me get this job at this company. And I know that you're very close to a decision maker. And I think the mistake people make is, you and I, we've been in our respective industries for decades now. Give out recommendations to people that are close to me willy nilly. I mean, if I recommend somebody to a company or to a person that I have a relationship with, I want to know that that person is someone that's not going to make me
Mm-hmm.
look bad, or that's going to harm the person to whom I'm making the recommendation, because I have a relationship with that person too.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And it's very important that having at least some of those conversations with a mentee before you make that recommendation, that's important too, because I have recommended people I haven't known very well after a few conversations, but I will preface that when I talk to somebody who's a close friend, former boss, former colleague. I'll let them know, like, hey, here's this person, John Doe, Jane Doe. I think they seem like they're a solid fit for this role, but I'm telling you that based on a few conversations. Take a look at the resume, have a conversation, make your own decision. You're not beholden to this, but I will couch it in that sense.
So, sort of a corollary to this is how you want the avenues that you are willing to accept mentee. I just recently was talking about advice that I would give to my 21-year-old self with Sahar. And one of the things I said was, if I could go back in time and mentor myself, I would say, don't wait for mentors to come into your life. Like, go out and seek mentors. I mean, look at people who are doing what you want to be doing right now. And, that's a mentor perspective. But look at people who are doing something that you aspire to do, like somewhere down the line. And, that's a potential mentor. But I think that the young people and everybody else needs to go out and try to find mentors. You mentor a lot of people. I mentor a lot of people. For you personally, how do you like to be approached, or what's acceptable and what's not acceptable for a prospective mentee to approach you?
Meaning, I'm thinking about that. As far as being approached, like, how do they just ask you?
Well, like what I'm thinking is if if somebody just cold messages you
Yeah, yeah.
on LinkedIn, how does, how is that? What if somebody, meets you at a professional event or a social event? What's the hierarchy of, acceptability or
Hmm.
that you have to opening a dialogue?
Honestly, for that, I would say almost anything if it's done well and done right. And I'll qualify that. If I'm in person, if someone meets me in person, it would be great if they said, hey, so and so, Tariq Afeef, I'm so and so. Maybe they know me through someone. They explain the relation, or they just say, hey, I looked you up on LinkedIn. Blah blah blah. They'll talk about it a little bit, and they'll say, "I'm interested in the industry. I'm interested in your company. I'm interested in the connection that you have." And if they're very open and explain it, that's perfectly acceptable. That is an in-person cold call, right? LinkedIn messaging can be okay, right? Can be okay. It depends on how you do it. These days, you get pinged by like people who are not actually people. It's some bot that sends something out there that just wants your contact information. I mean, show me that you're actually a person. How are we interconnected? If you can somehow show how we're interconnected, that goes a long way on that cold call. If I know nothing about you, there's nothing that you've put in there that connects me to you, I'll probably not answer only because I'm not sure if it's a so yeah, and phone calls definitely don't cold call me. If you have my number, you got my number through somebody, for the love of God, have that person connect us. Don't just text me out of the blue from your number that I don't have saved.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, and I think that what I would say is because I feel the same way as you on all fronts that you just described. I think that speaks to the importance of getting out of your comfort zone and going to networking events, going to places where you don't necessarily need to know anybody, but
Mm-hmm.
where people that can help you that are in your profession, your career, your industry are going to be at. Because I think it's so much easier for me to respond to a LinkedIn message if somebody is familiar to me, even if it's just because they ran into me at a bar association function or a continuing legal education seminar or even at a social function, and they made the effort in the in-person scenario to just introduce themselves, briefly have a conversation, and then when they send me that LinkedIn message,
Mm-hmm.
or if I give them my number, if they send me a text message, there's some background to it. And I think that's why it's so important for people to really get comfortable being uncomfortable, because a lot of people don't like networking because, like going somewhere into a room where you don't know anybody. And then trying to meet people, it's very hard. I mean, except for like the really extroverted people, that is a real challenge. But in this world, if you want to be competitive, then you have to do those things that are going to give you the edge. So I would say I like to see people reaching out to me after they've made some kind of connection. Now, the other good way to make a connection with me, if we can't meet in person, is if you introduce them to me. So, you find, that common connection. And LinkedIn does that really well, where it says, okay, you want to meet Junaid Thief. Well, Junaid Thief has these 5 people in common with you. Reach out to those 5 people. Now, you and I know, like on LinkedIn, even as hard as we try, there are people in our networks that we don't know very well or we haven't kept in touch with. So it's not a failsafe, but it's definitely the better approach than to make a completely cold call.
For sure. A couple of additions to all of that, right? Is about the comfort zone. Going to an event or if you're already at a social event, walking over and talking to someone. Depending on the person you're approaching, you may realize how easy it is. You may have it built up in your head how difficult it's going to be, and it may be super easy. And that helps you, that one success will help you make the leap again and again. But along those lines, there are some people who you may think are a certain way as a mentor, a potential mentor or connection. Some people are not that social. Some are in the moment, busy and don't want to have that conversation. So if a conversation doesn't go well, don't use that as a litmus test for all future conversations. It's going to be a mixed bag. You're going to have the good, the bad, and the ugly. The other thing I'll say related to that is take some notes, right? Like these days, I used to carry a small notebook around for ideas of things and a pen wherever I went.
I walk around with this.
Exactly, right? And so, but nowadays, you have your phone. It's, you have voice memos. I use voice memos a lot over the last several years. When I have an idea for something, I record a voice memo. Now, you have to use that, right? Go back home and take some notes. Like if you just say, hey, I just spoke with Junaid Afeef. He's a lawyer. He's blah, 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 coached wrestling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever it is, you don't know how you're going to pivot that conversation and grow that relationship. Just take a few notes, step off to the side and do that. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
No, so I would recommend that.
No, I agree. So let's pivot to some nuts and bolts. I want to talk about resumes. And I know you have a lot of really good knowledge about what makes a good resume, what doesn't. I think a lot of that stems from the fact that over the course of your career, especially as you've advanced, you've done a lot of interviews and you've reviewed a lot of resumes. So what do you think are the things that you're looking for in a good resume? And if you can, talk about maybe generally what you're looking for in a good resume when you're advising a mentee, and then you can maybe even distinguish out like recent college graduates, people early in their professional careers, and then our peers, seasoned professionals that are looking to transition after a layoff or a downsizing, and what their resume might look like.
Perfect. Yeah. So what I look for, some things depend on the level of experience, but the one commonality is it has to be well written, flow well, and the amount of text and detail that you have is commensurate with the amount of experience. If you're brand new, entrant into the workforce, you're looking for your first job or maybe your second job, you've had a couple of years of experience, don't put your resume is not a brain dump for every meeting you've ever been to, and it's not about attaching your name to every accomplishment the company has had. It's got to be well written, well formatted, and it has to flow well. It also has to show results. Saying that you are a part of a committee, great. And you say that you are a part of a committee where, it was C-suite executives. Okay, that doesn't really tell me anything. That may sound great to you, and it may have been an enriching experience for you, but it's not a result. So it has to show results. So keep it as lean as possible because there are people who have to read these things. And if it looks very dense, people are barely going to skim it, right? So that's a very important thing. So it has to flow well. Don't put everything on there. And white space is a good thing too, right? And so now for people who've been in the workforce a long time, don't be married to something that you did 15 years ago. If it's not an amazing result, remove it. Some job that you had 15, 20 years ago, if you have 10 bullets because you're so wedded to it, nobody cares. The job that you're looking for, chances are it touches on what you did in the last 3 to 5 years. Focus on those jobs or that job or whatever you did there. And again, results. Don't just say that you attended this or you did this. What was the result? That I'll pause there. Those are some of the main things. Yeah.
So when you look at resumes of mentees and you give them feedback, what's some advice that you can give in terms of accepting critical or difficult advice from a mentor?
Yeah, I've explained that. So on one hand, it's for someone who's just coming out of college. I was helping somebody with their resume, and they were so wedded to how something was done. They were like, "Well, I talked to a guy in my class, and he thought it looked fine." It's like, okay, that's great. I guess you don't really need my help because I'm explaining to you that just being a part of this group was irrelevant to me as the reader. What did you do in the group? What was your role? What did you drive? But, it's one of those things. Like, if you think it's fine, I guess, what can I help you with?
Yeah, on that point, if you really feel strongly about something that your mentor disagrees with, the solution isn't to push back and try to convince the mentor that she or he is wrong. I think that's counterproductive to building a good relationship. I mean, in almost everything, we ask our friends, our loved ones, our professional colleagues for feedback. You say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing X. What do you think?" And you'll field a range of feedback. Now, I chuckle when people get upset when you ask them for feedback and they give you feedback and then you choose to go a different route. And they're like, "Well, then why did you ask me for my feedback? I told you not." It's like, yeah, bro, I asked 10 different people. I
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of good advice and I appreciated your advice.
Mm-hmm.
And I factored it into the other advice that I got. And I looked at what was important to me and how I felt. And then I did it. I didn't push back against you when you gave me that advice because I valued
Mm-hmm.
what you were saying. Just because I didn't accept it or incorporate it doesn't mean that what you told me wasn't valuable. And I think in the same vein, when a mentee tries to push back and say, "Well, like the example you gave, well, I talked to somebody and they said it looked good." It's like, great, keep that to yourself and, take your advice, put it up against what the other person's advice is. Maybe look at the background and experience of the person giving you one point of view. Look at the background and experience of the mentor and his point of view and kind of weigh it and say, okay, the mentor has 25 years of experience in the industry that I hope to enter into. And the other person is also graduating next semester with me,
Right, right.
and see where that goes.
So yeah, and it's one of those things. Like even in the workforce, when someone is getting feedback, right? One of the primary things that we tell people is, listen, when you're getting feedback, accept the feedback. You don't have to accept everything that's being said, but take in the feedback, take some notes, right? The last thing that you want to do, and the most seasoned people do this too, right? Someone gives feedback and they combat like word for word. It's feedback. It's not a debate. You take the feedback. You may disagree, as you were saying, right? But just accept the feedback because guess what? Not everyone is willing to give feedback. There's some mentors who they don't want to hurt your feelings, and so there are some people who early on when you started this podcast off, it was you talked about some people are looking for validation. It's like so take the feedback. It may not be validation, and some of it might be, but accept it, process it, and take a next step accordingly.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanna pivot to the what I think is going to be the most entertaining part of our conversation, and this is war stories from the mentoring front. And so I want to start off with some don'ts. I will call them my pet peeves, and then we'll wrap up with some mentee home runs. So examples of how to do it well. So let's kick off the terrible mentee behavior pet peeves. And I'm going to let you start.
All right, terrible mentee behavior. One is not respecting my time, right? So I had a particular person I was working with. We had a good first session. And what I actually do a lot of times, I put someone through a mock interview so they can understand what their resume looks like. So I did that. They had feedback. The next time we were supposed to meet, I carved out time. I'm a busy person. I work on the weekends as well. I have family obligations. I got on the call and the person wasn't on the call. So I I texted the person, and the person responded. They picked up. They called me, and they're like, "Hey," and they were all excited. They're like, "Yeah, man, I'm not able to make it. I'm doing some volunteer work." It's like, I'm glad you're out there doing volunteer work, but this is a time that we carved out. Like, you somehow thought I would be excited that you're doing volunteer work. I'm not. That was the last conversation I ever had with that person.
Yeah, I think in that same line of thinking, I had a family member who recently graduated from college and was interested in going to law school. And I was really excited about that because the number of people in our family that want to go to law school are far and few in between. So I said, okay, I got one. And I set up a time to meet with this person. And it was literally like 5 or 6 days into the future. I carved out the time to speak with this person. I literally put it into my workday calendar that, okay, this 30 minutes, I'm busy. I'm going to be meeting with somebody. And about 15 minutes before the, scheduled time that we were supposed to get together, I got a text message basically saying, hey, yeah, something came up, need to reschedule. And that was it. And I thought, okay, you're 22 years old. You're my family member. I know that you're not struggling with housing or food. Hopefully it's not like a car accident or some type of medical emergency. Maybe you should let me know a little bit about, what it is that was such an exigent circumstance that you could only tell me that you couldn't make it, 15 minutes before the meeting. But, because it could have been an exigent circumstance, I didn't, like make a judgment right then and there. And then later I found out that, oh yeah, I had an opportunity to talk to this other person, and, this was the only time that they could talk. And I thought, oh, okay, great. So you basically prioritized this other person over me in the last minute, and the same as you. To me, that was a big enough issue that, ding, you're off my list.
Yep. I also had one other thing that's in a similar vein. I carved out time post work, to meet with this person because this time they picked the time, right? And I was like, all right. And so we were getting into it about, and this is maybe the second session, right? Working on the resume, and they did a great job following up. Took the advice and updated their resume. At some point, this is also the person who said, yeah, I talked to my friend and this one, they thought this was fine. It's like, okay, now we're in the middle of making some good progress. And then this person cuts off the conversation. It's like, you know what, I gotta, this is good, I've gotta go. And then I was like, okay. And they wanted to have another session, and they did. They picked the same time, but then they abruptly ended at like 6 o'clock or something like that. And I'm pretty sure, I think that person, they didn't have a job. They were done with school. They graduated. I think it was just there living with their parents, right? Family dinner time. It was like, my man, I respect that, but you picked the time. You picked an hour. You cut it off halfway because you didn't want to miss dinner with mom and dad. That's a very bizarre behavior, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely. You got to adult up. Whether you're living at home or not, yeah, those excuses sometimes you get from people that are like have a familial relationship with us, and they tell you, oh, you know what, I was gonna come, but my mom and dad told me that I needed to go here. It just sends such a childish message to me about their level of maturity. And you know what? I mean, you and I, if our parents told us, in our, post college years, hey, I need you to go to run to the grocery store when we're in the middle of having to do something for our work, the right response would be absolutely as soon as I'm done. We would never let that derail us. So I sometimes wonder if people use those types of my parents said, or some other kind of excuse as some way thinking that we're going to absolve them of responsibility for poor behavior because, oh well, look at that, what an obedient son or daughter.
Yep. So yeah, that kind of stuff definitely doesn't make me want to recommend someone or continue that relationship.
Any other pet peeves? Because I got one.
Having and this is less of a pet peeve. I should have brought this up in the resume thing. It's look, there is age discrimination out there. It exists, but I mean, you got to ditch the AOL and Hotmail accounts, right? Get Gmail. Don't even have Yahoo, right? Just like stick with Gmail, and that's for the older people who I talk to, like my peers, maybe a little older, a little younger, and then the younger folk, get a good professional thing. First name, last name. If you have a common first name, last name, some numbers at gmail.com. Don't have it like, djshiz at gmail.com or something like that. Be professional. That's it.
Yeah. I have a pet peeve, and I know you're going to laugh at this one, but we're going to get into it. When I get an email, a LinkedIn message, or a text, and I know who it's from, or I can find out who it's from because I looked at their LinkedIn, and it starts, "Dear Junaid," and I'm thinking, oh, this must be one of my colleagues. This must be one of my peers. Is this a judge? Is this a professor at a law school? Is this the dean of one of the universities? No, it's John or Jane Doe, who is, a first-year law student, and they found it appropriate to refer to me by my first name. I find that to be inappropriate, and I think it's a pet peeve. It is a pet peeve of mine, and I know you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, okay, boomer. So, that is the biggest boomer behavior possible, but it's because of your experience. You're an administrative law judge. People approach you a certain way, whether at a professional event or when you're in a hearing or something like that, right? Now, for me, I work in software engineering, and that's what I've done for almost 30 years. People who are brand new to the company. I have employees in India, for example, where that kind of how you speak to your elders, people are very hypersensitive and particular among the culture. I have people who are fresh out of college call me by my first name. It's commonplace. I'm not an exception. People just refer to everybody with their first name. So I don't have that hang up.
No, but see,
I expect it because I'll tell you, there's someone we both have mentored a bit. And I met him through you. You connected me to him. Amazing guy, right? But he refers to me as Mr. Afeef. We had a video call and in communications.
I love that.
Mr. Afeef, I was like, I'm like, he must have gone through the ringer of the Junaid Afeef School of Mentoring. But yeah, I was like, it actually made me feel awkward. I was like, you can just call me by my first name, but I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable at that point.
So here's the thing. And this is, yes, that is my, eccentricity. And it's born of my generation and also culture, because you mentioned, like the Indian culture, like, we just always had this like idea of being respectful to our elders. So I think it's probably a byproduct of all of that. And I'm a Gen Xer, not a boomer. But I think that from an advice standpoint, giving advice to people who are potentially going to interface with people of my generation, of your generation, I think it's important to know your audience, right? So, okay, I don't know what it is that they're learning in school right now that makes them think that, they can call everybody by their first name, and we can set aside the cultural aspect of whether that's appropriate or not. But if you are trying to develop a relationship with somebody and you want to be mentored by them, I think it behooves you to think about what the dynamics of that are. And like for the person that I recommended to you, that reached out to you, he maybe defaulted to thinking, all right, well, this person is, is Junaid Afeef's brother, same generation. So I'm going to start off with Mr. And I think that's the appropriate thing to do, because you don't know if you're going to meet Tariq Afeef or Junaid Afeef. If you meet Tariq and you call him Tariq, you know what? No harm, no foul. if you happen to meet a Junaid Afeef and like start off the conversation with Junaid, what's up, bro? Or even Junaid, how are you? Right off the bat, I'm thinking, wow, you definitely, didn't do your homework. You didn't look at my profile picture. You didn't look at the year that I graduated undergrad. And so you don't know which generation I come from. And you made an assumption. And now I'm annoyed by that. And, that's not going to stop me from talking to somebody and helping them. In fact, I'm working with somebody right now, and, she's a 1L in law school. And I mean, she didn't even take the time to look at my LinkedIn page to see what I do for a living. And she's, just talking to me, as if like, I was her best friend.
Mm.
And it just, to me, it speaks to their preparation. So I think that's one thing. And another pet peeve that I have is when people, I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but when people ask you questions that they could have easily found out, right? It's like, so people will be like, so have you done any litigation in your career?
Mm-hmm.
I'll get this from like a law student or a young lawyer, and I'll think, well, I was a public defender for the first like 5 years of my career. What did you think public defenders did? Or did you just not look at it? So it's like asking questions, thinking that you're being very thoughtful, but you're asking a question that you already should know the answer to, or that you can easily look up, is another pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, yeah. One of mine is this is a big one, and I had this experience in the last year or so, within the last couple of years. It was when people you're connecting with, they see your connections and they're like, hey, can you connect me with? And they give me a laundry list of people, or it may be piecemeal. These are all, this is, now keep in mind, this is a person who's just graduated from college, from undergrad, and they want to be connected to CFOs or CIOs or C suite in a lot of companies. It's like, unless there's a particular purpose, like you saw their profile and you thought that their journey of entrepreneurship, that really matches what you want to do, or they're at a company you're really interested in, and I'm not connected to anybody else at that company. Gotcha. But I could absolutely tell this person just wanted to be connected to a whole lot of C-suite. It's like they don't know you. I know you. That's why I'm spending, as much time as you need, really, like many, many hours. But don't just try and get connected to C-suite because you think it looks good on your LinkedIn connections. Nobody looks at that. Nobody is going to hire you based on that. And if they don't know you, they're not going to give you time of day. Not because of their level, but chances are you got to that level, you've got certain level of responsibilities, work, possibly your personal obligations, family obligations. Make it worth their while on why you're connecting with them. So don't just come and ask to be connected to all the C-suite I know.
Yeah. That's a good one. Do you have any other pet peeves or examples of really bad mentee behavior that we can highlight as a don't do?
When you get connected to, so as we have conversations with people and they want to be connected to someone, or we feel like someone could really be of good help to them, you have to go so above and beyond in your and how you connect with them, respecting their time, the responsiveness. You got to be very responsive, right? If you want to be connected with someone, one of our colleagues or personal friends, and we connect you, and you miss that meeting, right? Something like that, or you show up and you don't present yourself well, you just woke up, you got a baseball hat on or something, that's ridiculous, right? Like you treat it like it's a job interview. It's not, but treat it like it's a job interview. Take all the level of seriousness that takes.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what mentees need to understand is when you develop a relationship with a mentor and then that mentor sees fit to connect you with people that she or he has a relationship with, you're representing that mentor. When I refer somebody to a friend of mine, or somebody who I have a strong business relationship with, and I say, okay, hey, person X, I've got this mentee. I really like him or her, and I would really appreciate it if you could chat with them. And that person is going to say yes or no on the strength of our relationship and say, okay, well, if Junaid is recommending this person, I'm willing to talk to this person. And then if that person oversleeps and misses the appointment, and I get a phone call from that person and says, hey, dude, so and so was supposed to call me this morning and they didn't. And then, call that mentee and say, hey, what happened? And they're like, yeah, I overslept. Can we reschedule? Like as if it was just like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, whatever, no big deal. What they don't understand is that now that person that I referred them to is, maybe not in that one instant, but, over time going to say, I'm not going to take these
Yeah.
recommendations as seriously because if, Junaid is sending me people who are this irresponsible, then maybe I shouldn't waste my time.
Right, for sure.
So, all right, we talked about a lot of bad things. Let's talk about mentee home runs, examples from, both of our mentor-mentee relationships where people really knocked it out of the ballpark.
I think you should go first and start off with whomever called you Mr. Afeef.
Yes, so that is actually exactly right. It's important to make a first good impression, and calling me Mr. Afeef is definitely the way to go. So I'm going to use, and we can both use this person as an example if you want. But I met somebody that went to high school with Safe, and then and he's at a university with Zane now. And what I thought was really impressive about this person, he's not. I'm not even necessarily a mentor for him. I'm like really. I was sort of a first level mentor that kind of connected him to you, and you've been able to do a lot more with him, but his emotional intelligence, his ability to make eye contact and and speak with enthusiasm in complete sentences about things that are important to me really impressed me. Um, when I so I ran into him, and I think I introduced you to him when we went to a wrestling meet in Iowa City,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we saw him, and he wasn't going to the duel. It was Iowa versus Oklahoma State, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch it, but I'm not gonna be at Carver Hawkeye for it." And I know that he's not a big wrestling fan, and he knows that I'm a huge wrestling fan, and he knows that like I've coached wrestling, and both my sons, who he's friends with, are wrestlers. So fast forward about 2 or 3 months later, and his younger sister and Zareen are good friends, and they were at like a honor society event, and he was there, and we walked out of the auditorium, and he made eye contact, and he came up to me and he said, "Hi, Mr. Afeef." So yes, that was good, but even more important, he said, by the way, wasn't that an amazing dual meet against Oklahoma State? And then he rattled off details about the Ferrari match near the end of the duel with all this detail. And I'm thinking either this guy has converted to becoming a wrestling fan, or he knows his audience and he prepares and he has the emotional intelligence to know how to engage with somebody, to ask them questions and to speak to them about things that are important to them, because that is what leaves a positive impression with most people. Even when I know that that's what he's doing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though I know that he is basically coming into this conversation prepared and talking to me about things that are important to me, and I know that that's a strategy, I'm still impressed.
Yeah, that particular person, very impressive, and I was very happy to help him to the point where. So first, when he reached out to me, when you connected us, and I said, "Hey, send a LinkedIn connection," and he sent me a message. And yes, he started off Mr. Afeef, and I knew that was coming from. I knew that would have gone a long way with you. But we connected, and so the first thing is He was very responsive. I was actually willing to meet with him in person. I said, hey, I don't know if you've gone back to school yet. He had gone back because he's an RA. So he said, as soon as things settle down, let me ping you, right? Because they had move in and things. And so, and then so when I did connect with him, I had a video call, I had a Google Meets video call, and it just everything like is clearly a smart person, very smart, computer science major, and he's a senior right now. But his EQ is what impressed me because we encounter tons of smart kids, right? Like our friends' kids, acquaintances' kids, they're all super smart. This one, though, very, very strong EQ. Just the way, he definitely did his homework. He saw my background and details on LinkedIn, and just all the things that and then we talked about things that he wanted to do. And it's in the software engineering arena. And he talked about what he wants to do now, maybe in the future, and some of the connections. I said, okay, so how can I help you with some of the connections? Because at the time he hadn't accepted or received or accepted his an offer for employment post graduation. And so he mentioned a bunch of these companies, and he gave me the why, like that he wanted to get connected. So, what he did was he came up with a list. I was going to suggest this, but he had a list of here are the companies, here are the people you're connected to. And he didn't just go right after C-suite. And in some cases, I did know some C-suite at certain companies. He didn't ask for those. And so, that made me, his interaction, and I knew that he would not embarrass me at all and be quite the opposite. So I added a bunch of names, and I connected him with people at Google, Microsoft, Netflix, perhaps, maybe not Netflix, but who's who of tech companies, right? Like I think Stripe. So I connected him to a ton of people because he just made me want to go out of my way to help him because he already landed a job, but he didn't stop there. He didn't say, hey, you know what, I landed my job, I'm good, don't need your help anymore. He wanted to build these connections, for looking like further out. He had a vision of, hey, I have a job, it's a great job, right? A great company, but he's looking like X years out and building a network and starting to learn from these people who have been in the industry. So, and when I connected him to each of these people in a message, he responded very quickly and said, hey, nice to meet you, so-and-so. Thank you for connecting me. Nice to meet you, so-and-so. I'll send you another message separately so we don't spam Tariq here.
Mr. Afeef.
No, actually, because I was on a first name basis in this this message, so I was okay.
Oh,
yeah. So, but yeah. No, he's particularly an awesome connection.
So I'll give you a home run and with two examples. When I meet people for mentoring, when I go to a bar association events or conferences and I meet law students, I interact with them and we exchange contact information. I tell them, all right, we've met, and please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn and we'll connect via LinkedIn. That's like, I don't even carry business cards anymore. I use my LinkedIn as my business card, and I ask them to reach out to me. And so they do. I would say 99% of people, they meet, they connect via LinkedIn, and then when they need something, they ping me again. But there's that 1%, and it really is just this 1%, and I wish it was more, that take me up on the offer that I make almost to everybody that I meet with, especially in the legal field, because that's really my area. And I say, listen, you're connecting with me. That's great. Keep in touch with me to the extent that you want, right? Because I'm not going to follow up on every single law student or young lawyer that, connects with me, but you're more than welcome to do that from your direction. Send me a message to let me know how you're doing. Let me know what's going on with law school or your first job. Engage with me in whatever way you think is appropriate so that we can build on that relationship, because the relationship doesn't exist just because we connected. The relationship exists because we interact and we get to know one another, and it's just through that human contact. So I've had one person who just, every semester or so just sends me a message via LinkedIn to just say, hey, I had a great semester. I'm doing this, and I made it onto XYZ Law Journal, and just, consistently keeps in touch with me. I mean, it's guaranteed that I'm going to remember this person.
Mm-hmm.
I know what's going on. So when she or he needs my help with something a few years down the line, when they graduate from law school or they're in the middle of their early career, they don't need to remind me of everything that they've done, because they've maintained a relationship with me. When I post something about an article that I wrote on LinkedIn, they're always good about, a thoughtful comment, like, liking it. And then, like, you can tell that they read it because they'll say, oh, I really like this part of your article. I think that's another thing, like leveraging LinkedIn. Just putting your presence up there isn't enough. It's like, and then connecting with somebody isn't enough. You need to interact with them in addition to just private messaging. If you post something about an accomplishment that you had, or an article that you wrote, or whatever, being able to to comment on it in a thoughtful way,
Mm-hmm.
in a meaningful way, I think is really important. So that's one home run. Another home run is a student who is now a sophomore in college. And I met him through Zane, because they did the dual degree program at the community college together. He was at a different high school. Zane was at his high school. And both of them finished their, whatever, their associate's degree while in high school. So I met him through that. And he told me that he was going to pursue pre-law. And so then I would, from time to time, invite him to events that I thought would be ideal. I kind of looked, I imagine when I was at Iowa and I was pre-law, like, what are the things that I would have loved to have done, that I do now? And, if I think of something like that, I think, okay, well, here's this young person. So the first time I invited him to something, he responded and said, sure, yes, absolutely, I would like to come. And then he showed up early. And then another opportunity came up, and there was a need for a volunteer, and I pinged him and I said, hey, there's this opportunity to volunteer. It'll be really good as a pre-law student. It'll put you into exposure with lawyers and judges. And, and he said yes. And he showed up. So over the course of the last 2 years, like on 3 different occasions, I've invited him to stuff, and he shows up. And then when he shows up, he actually engages with me and with other people. At the most recent event, I invited him to this Constitution Day forum that we did, and a appellate court justice was there.
Mm-hmm.
So I, did a handoff between him and the appellate court justice, introduced them, gave a little background, and then, kind of moved back and walked away. And he maintained this great conversation, from what I could see from afar, for a good, 10 minutes. To me, that is another home run. I mean, I don't know if he looks at me as a mentor or not, but we have that relationship, and I want to help him because he's doing all the right things from what I can see. So that's like another home run, is, staying in touch on a consistent basis with your mentor in a way that's not, intrusive, but is also, informative.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. One of my things where people have knocked it out of the park, I would say my last thing that I think is huge, is they don't make the same mistake twice, right? So when when you give them advice, that they're not just taking a note and doing something for that one, like, line item, bullet, that thing. They've taken that in, they've processed it. So whether it was a resume thing or a mock interview or other things, there are people I've mentored at work as well, right? Where I've given them certain feedback about communication, like while in a meeting, their presence on a call, how they follow up, and how to suggest things proactively. For a certain person who has knocked it out of the park, I've not had to give the same feedback twice. Like they take it, they digest it. I usually give examples with, like maybe a movie reference or such and such or reference. That person comes back to me later on after, they finished a call, and I may have given a movie reference as to, hey, think of it this way. And so he'll message me on Teams, be like, how is that for blank? For the movie. I'm like, man, this guy, that was months ago. So people who really listen, and you don't have to repeat the same thing twice, because when you have to repeat the same things, you wonder, how do they think and process? Do they actually care that much? And what's their growth going to be like? But when someone hears something one time, processes it, implements it, and then that becomes their new foundation. And then they move forward and get better and better and better. It's pretty amazing to see. I've seen people at work over the years, multiple people do that, and they've really progressed in their careers, in title, in ownership, and they're very thoughtful and thankful for it too. They know who helped them in these scenarios. So I have plenty of examples of people who have done amazing jobs.
So I think we'll wrap it up there. And I want to end on one important note. And I think you'll agree with me. Look, there were a couple things that I described in our conversation that I felt were deal breakers. If you blow me off right at the outset, it's not even me cutting you off. You cut yourself off. But beyond that, I think we talked about pet peeves and real blunders and things like that. And we've talked about people who have hit home runs. I don't want, especially young people, high school, college, professional school level, young professionals, to think that, you've got to be perfect to have a good mentor-mentee relationship. You can make mistakes. If you can work yourself up to the kind of individual who is personified by the examples that we gave, that should be a goal. But you shouldn't feel like you can't be a good mentee unless you are perfect. You can make mistakes. Just make the mistakes that are forgivable, and not the ones that betray some type of fatal flaw in your work ethic. Because I think at the end of the day, this is about profession. And if your work ethic stinks, then it's really hard to, mentor over that, bad work ethic.
100%. I agree.
All right, man. Thanks for logging in and having this conversation with me. I appreciate it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. See ya.